Two quick questions for you. First, did you get what you got in 2023 by design, or did your year kind of happen to you by accident? Second question, what's going to change for you in 2024? I have some gifts for you inside. Keep listening. Hey, it's Andrew, and this is Safety on Tap. Since you're listening in, you must be a leader wanting to grow yourself and drastically improve health and safety along the way. Welcome to you. You're in the right place. If this is your first time listening in, thanks for joining us, and well done for trying something different to improve. And of course, welcome back to all of you wonderful regular listeners. This episode will be released on the 18th of December 2023, and many of you may have even stopped work for the year at this point. The past few weeks are a unique time in the yearly cycle when the health and safety leaders I work with turn their minds to those two important questions I just asked. Did you get what you got in 2023 by design, or did your year kind of happen to you by accident? And what's going to change for you in 2024? The most effective leaders I know and work with know the answers to these two questions, and the ones who struggle or drag themselves over the line for an underwhelming finish to the year don't. It's that simple. It might not be easy to hear that, but I've seen it enough to be able to share it with you confidently, because I know that things can be better if you choose for them to be better. So this episode has two simple things that I hope are going to help you. The first is about the process the leaders that I work with go through to make 2024 their best year yet. And the second is a short reflection on something that I do for myself, which is choose a word for the year. Let's go. What you got in 2023, you got for a reason. You might not know why, and you might have had curveball after curveball thrown at you, and it could be a relief for you to get to the end of the year and say, well, that's over. Whew. But it would be a shame to not squeeze a little juice from your year, regardless of how it unfolded, because it will teach you something about yourself, about your plans, and what you can do differently. So the coaching process that I developed for my clients is called Your Best Year Yet. It's an uncomplicated step-by-step reflection and prompt to learn from 2023 and to get ready for a better 2024. I didn't invent any of the things that it involves. Much of the things that I take you through are thousands of years old, but it's a great guide and it helps create accountability for you to set aside some headspace and some calendar space to make 2024 your best year yet. It's a 30-ish minute video and a couple of pages in a simple playbook that you can download. And I want you to have it for free because I know it will help if you have a play with it. It's the first time I've shared it, and I hope it really does help. I won't go into all the details here. You can take a look and learn more about it over at safetyontap.com/YBYY. That's safetyontap.com/YBYY. I'd love to hear how you go with it. I know that it works when you do it. Feel free to drop a comment into the show notes for this episode, which you'll find over at safetyontap.com/EP214. The second thing I wanted to share with you in this episode is my word of the year and a little bit about why that's even a thing. For many years, I have chosen a word or phrase of the year, which is a little bit like a motto to guide me through the year. I've retained my word from 2020 up until now, which was the phrase ruthless gentleman. It might sound like a strange combination of words, but they mean something. So if you're interested, have a listen to episode 166, which is where I explain my reflections and how I arrived at that phrase. The past few years, during and after COVID, have in many ways been a bit of a blur for me. So whilst that phrase was still helpful, I probably needed a different word for 2023, but I didn't do the work to decide it. And there's a lesson in that, given what we talked about earlier, about doing your year by design rather than by default. Anywho, the idea of choosing a word of the year isn't my idea. I learned it from my friend and past Safety on Tap podcast guest, Tim Allred, who actually picked it up from Dr. Jason Fox, also a past guest. But plenty of people do this. My wife listens to the Happier podcast by Gretchen Rubin, where she and her sister also engage in this simple but powerful ritual. So here's a bit about my word for the year for 2024, present. In arriving at this word for the year, there were 3 perspectives, which are all equally important in bringing meaning to this word and helping to connect the word, which is just a word, with my intent for it and my behavior throughout the year. So the first perspective on the word present is simply to be present. I've spent a lot of time and energy working on myself these past few years, and many of you will know that part of that work centers on challenges with anxiety. The most useful, relevant, and impactful improvements I have been able to make have come from a field called acceptance and commitment training, or therapy, ACT for short. Within this, the creator of it, Russ Harris, talks about the causes of many of our problems, of which there are 6 broad ones. And each of those problems has a flip side or a solution or a way forward. One of those 6 is when we are stuck, either or both in the past or the future, and we lose contact with ourselves and with the world in the process of being stuck in the past or the future. The flip side of this, they say, is to be here and now, which sometimes they call contacting the present moment. Now, this idea is not a new one. Eastern philosophy has long taught that the only time we have is right now, because the past is gone and we cannot know or really even reach the future. It's only this present moment, and we have any choice about, any influence over. So the first perspective on my word present is to keep contact with here and now, to be present. The second perspective on present is the synonym of a gift, like giving a present, like giving a gift. I've always strived to be generous, to give first before asking, and as Edgar Schein encourages us, to have the intent of being genuinely helpful to others. I'd like to think that this thread has always been with me. It's not like it's disappeared. This podcast is evidence of that, and 100 other little ways in which I try, I hope, to make someone else's life better by giving. So if it's not new, why did it float to the top of my reflection to be important enough for me to highlight for myself in 2024? I can only think that I can do more and do better. This podcast hasn't quite been weekly for a while, so that's one example that I can improve. The writing I share on LinkedIn is getting deeper and personal and very rave reviews, which is awesome. But more than that, I've been reflecting on how I can be more generous without being emptied at the same rate. So it's a little bit like hugs or compliments or knowing something useful. Just because you share it doesn't mean that someone else now has it and you don't, or you have less of it. So this second perspective for me of the word present is to give even more generously. And this excites me and I am energized by it. The third perspective of my word of 2024, present, is actually the verb form, the doing word, presenting. And it's not like being on stage or being a performer. What I mean is the perspective of the word present got me focused on how I show up in the world. This is a whirlwind of things, and I need to nail some of them down. How I show up as a dad and a husband, how I show up even when I don't feel like it, how I show up for you and the Safety on Tap community, and logically how I show up for the people that I work with every day in my coaching and facilitation work. And it also has me thinking about where I will choose to not show up if it's not aligned with how and where I need to show up the most and the best. So 3 perspectives on my word of the year for 2024, present. Be present, give generously, and show up. It's occurred to me that these 3 perspectives might sound just a little bit too clever or too polished or kind of sickly sweet. So with a tiny bit of imposter syndrome, I wanted you to know that this word emerged from a surprising, messy series of reflections and journaling and a little bit of meditation. And I did not have any of these words or the word present until the very last minute. And then they came together and the relationship between them kind of just flowed. And literally I turned from my writing desk where the pen and paper is to come to the keyboard to write this podcast for you. And if it sounds a little bit woo-woo, and that's all right, it probably is. And then you realize how mentally and practically powerful this kind of stuff is for real. I wish you and your family all the best for the holiday period, whatever you believe in and however you celebrate. I can't wait to talk to you on the flip side. Don't forget to check out the free video and the playbook on your best year yet. That's over at safetyontap.com/YBYY. And I'm looking forward to doing 2024 with you. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, what's the one thing you'll do to take positive, effective, or rewarding action to grow yourself and drastically improve health and safety along the way? See ya.